Hi, everyone. I'm getting ready to open up this story for testing on the training test platform. And I know that it's going to be very difficult to find time to meet with all of the testers. So I'm recording a brief overview that will hopefully help you in your testing efforts. So this is an iterative enhancement to product version records so that we can better track the status of products being developed and released into Saba, Now Learning, wherever. So read through the acceptance criteria and you can see some of the things that we are working on. You can also, if you're interested, look through the solution design, testing guidelines, etc. But I want to just show you around so that you can kind of get the lay of the land here. So you're going to log into the training test instance. It's just trainingtest.servicenow.com. You'll use your regular credentials that you use to log into the regular training environment. And let's begin by looking at the curriculum development menu. I'll just walk through a couple of the changes here and then we'll dive into the major changes for the story. So I did a little bit of cleanup to our menu. One of the things that has been bothering me is that the course topic mapping overview got too large to really, you know, see very well. So I've just cleaned that up, limited the topics that we show in there to just the top two levels of the hierarchy and limited the courses to just show the on-demand and live training. So this actually renders again. And again, we could look at here are all the courses that talk about discovery. We can go and look at all the topics that a particular course covers. So we can slice and dice a couple different ways. All of these are the same until we get to product reference materials. This is a new table that I'll talk about in a bit. My curriculum work, I just grouped these navigation items to be handy and added a new section called Active Curriculum. This is based on several reviews with Karen, John, Alicia, and Julie, so that we can just quickly isolate things that are live, meeting different criteria, etc. Now, one thing to note here is one, we're in the training test environment, so this data is not up to date. You can see our last clone to this environment was January 19th. The other thing is that we have updated the states for product versions. So there will be some data cleanup that will be required as we transition to this model on Friday. Uh, Nothing major. All the data is still there. We just will have to update some of the states to reflect our new ones. Then finally, in the administration section, I just alphabetized these and added a reference table for our reference materials. So again, I'll talk about that a little bit more. For right now, though, let's open up a product version record. Let's see if I can get one that is in draft. Well, actually, let's see. HR implementation looks like Orlando. So I'm going to put this back in draft mode just so we can look through it. What I'm going to ask everybody to do for testing is just find one of your existing ones. You may have to fill in some mandatory fields based on the state being live, but I want us to start with draft. So we'll fill in what you need to, and then we'll get to one in draft. But you can see our states have, I think we had 3 states before. Now we've got a few more. We've got draft, scoping, pending resources, like we're waiting for someone to free up to be able to work on this. Work in progress testing, pending release. That's when Julie, Alicia, and the gang kind of go into high gear getting things released, referenced, etc. Live, pending retirement. We figure there are lots of automation opportunities at that stage, retired, and then ones that we can go to at any time on hold and canceled. So there are definitions for each one of these, as well as explanations about the types of things that will go on in there. So we can use that for documentation purposes. What I want you to do is right click on one of your existing ones and use copy with topics. So I don't know if this one had topics. It didn't, but if we had any course topic mappings in there, those would come over with this new version. We'll give this a release family, and we can see that we are in draft mode for this new one. We've got an owner. In draft mode, we only have two mandatory fields. What course is it? What the owner is. We're not even requiring what release family this is targeting yet. So as we walk through each of the states, we have various fields that will be mandatory or not. So walk through that, make sure that at each stage the required fields make sense. You'll also notice that we relabeled a lot of the form sections in here. General product information has a lot of the same information as we had before, but it's just laid out a little bit differently and hopefully in a pretty logical order. I've also added a couple of tooltips so that you can see how and where prerequisite fields are referenced. So all of our prereq fields are included in our automated welcome emails. Contacts and bill of materials links. We've always had curriculum developer, secondary, and curriculum manager. Curriculum manager is required while we're even in a state of draft. So we know kind of who owns this to begin with. I've also added primary instructor SME, and if the delivery type or the delivery mode includes on demand, oh, I need to add those in there. If the delivery mode includes on demand, you'll also see a reference to the e-learning developer as well. Just We have content development source materials, and remember that this is linked out. If you look at my browser status bar, I don't have access to these places, but they have all been repointed to the appropriate CDEV SharePoint links in there. From a project plan tab, we have a link to the actual project plan, and I'm just going to select one. And then we've dot walked so that we can, at a glance, see where we stand with the project plan without having to drill into it. We have a tab specifically for Now Learning because most everything we do now is published out in Now Learning. So we have the front end Now Learning portal URL. So this is what students or customers would see. And then we also have a URL link to the source record, the one that you maintain and update. At the point where we're pending release, these two become required. I didn't make short description, and learning objectives required here. Most important thing is that this information exists in Now Learning. If you want to draft it here and then copy it over to Now Learning, that's great. That's actually ideal. And I made sure that the field types and the field lengths match Now Learning, so you can copy and paste that exactly. But again, I'm sure some people might want to just draft it right over there instead. For live courses, we have the external instructor share URL, the syllabus URL, and then we have our new instructor welcome letter and welcome message that goes into our automated emails. So that these are the fields that are applicable just for live classes. Also for live classes, we've got our Cloud Labs template and instance provisioning notes. Book, we choose our vendor. So right now, a lot of our stuff for our live training uses Gilmore Global. We can also do Saba and Now Learning. And as we get more publishing vendors or places to publish, we can add those in as vendors. We left all of the Saba material here because there are some things that are still referenced in Saba, but we figure when Saba goes away, it's easier to just deprecate this whole tab. So we didn't want to mix that in with everything else that we had. And then finally, we've got our activity log that has not changed. So when you go through testing for this, just kind of step through, are all the fields logical? Do they make sense? Are they consistent? Um, as you step through each of the states, just kind of see what fields are mandatory at each stage. And I think you'll have to save in between if you're stepping backwards. But make sure that that's logical as well. Then we get to our related lists here. Publications, topics, and related requests, those are all things that have existed for a while. But then we have active defects and active enhancements. And I'm going to jump over to a different product version record that hopefully has some data there. There we go. So here we're looking at a different one that is using the feedback app integration. So what I've done is I've created relationships so that you can see from your product version record all of the active defects, all of the active enhancements related to your course. These are not the ones specifically for New York, but these are all the ones that you haven't dealt with to close out. Um, so there's probably a lot to take a look at for everybody. But I wanted to bring these right to the surface so that you can deal with them. We also have related PVRs. So if there are other things, other courses that relate, if you have a certification product version record, uh, on-demand course, if you've got multiple components, you can just show the relationships. So here, maybe this platform subscription model is something good to reference here. You can just select that. It's just a many-to-many table. And then I've also added a relationship comment so you can just describe how it's related. And then we get to related reference materials. This is net new, so this may have some big evolution in the future. I used to use a works cited app to maintain all of my reference material that I referenced to develop my course, and then also for developing mainline certifications, all the source materials and locations for that material as well. So here we're looking at ServiceNow Platform Implementation New York. Maybe I looked at a TOI that's related to this. I could say this was the New York Platform TOI. See points at maybe 0.23 minutes in for ATF, blah, blah, blah. This is just for us to explain kind of what's significant about this. I did create this with 4,000 characters, so that you should have a lot of room. We say author or presenter if we know who that is. Maybe it was Martin Wood. What type it is. So I've seeded the types with some of the common ones that may be relevant to us. Say this is a recorded session TOI. And if I could spell, we'll say that this relates to automated test framework. What else? Flow Designer, and maybe Integration Hub. So we could just tag it with whatever topics are addressed. Give the URL. Fake one in this case. And just approximately what the date is so we can see how these things have aged. And you can see it's automatically associated with your product version record. Okay, so we can see all of the related materials that went into this course. Also, if we go to our course topics now, I've put the related list there too. So we can see all of the reference materials that any curriculum developer has used for any course that relate to this topic. And we can see the published date from here so we can see how old things are. Okay, so that's the idea behind the reference materials. Two ways to get to it, but hopefully it helps us centralize and share all those materials. Let's go back to our product version record. And I think those are the highlights that I wanted to share with you. If you have any comments or questions, please add them as comments on the story and we'll take a look at it. I do need to have all the feedback uh, by no later than Wednesday close of business. I know that's cutting it short. I just happen to be out on Thursday, so I might not have time to react. But for the most part, again, we're just looking for showstoppers. Any reason that we can't go live with this on Friday um, versus things that we can catch in a second iteration. I hope this helps. I hope you like the improvements and I look forward to your feedback. Thanks.